So Sonic Frontiers' long-awaited final update is finally out. This update promised a new story, characters, and challenges. They really should have underlined the word challenge. This new update did in fact include all these new and exciting things, but is it any good? Sonic Frontiers over the past year has been releasing free updates, each one improving the game. First update added the boss rush and cyberspace rush. The second update added the spin dash and the much needed deceleration options. Both these updates adding new activities and great new gameplay options, but update 3 was definitely the most ambitious. The new story is kind of new. It gives the game a new ending and changes how they approach the final thread, but overall I think it does a fine job to give us an alternate ending. I mean, I'll take any excuse to play as Knuckles. While running around the island, you can find the other characters and there's some really fun exchanges to be had. I liked any exchange between Tails and Eggman. Once again, the writing is very in character and very good. The music in this update is fantastic, as expected from Otani. I really like that each character has their own music when playing as them. Knuckles' theme is definitely my favorite. Speaking of characters, let's talk about the biggest part of this update, the new playable characters. This is the first 3D Sonic game to let you play as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy since Sonic 06. So I'm going to go through each of the characters one at a time and give my thoughts on them. Amy is the first character we get to play as, and she's very fun. Amy has a triple jump with a hover at the end, making her really fun for platforming. She can get to places she's not supposed to be very easily. Every character gets a side loop, spin dash, and boost, making them similar to Sonic in speed, so it's not a very jarring change. Amy's combat uses her hammer and tarot cards, and she also has a poisoning parry. Running around as Amy is a lot of fun. All of her platforming sections are really good. On my first playthrough I found myself getting distracted by any pink platforms. These platforming challenges lead you to Coco that give you skill points to upgrade your character. The color of the platforms represent who it's for. The bigger the platforming challenges leads to big Cocos that reveal part of the map. Amy's attacks are fine, but I barely use them as her stomp is her strongest move by far. None of the characters really have combos like Sonic, so it doesn't make them ideal for combat. Amy's homing attack, when upgraded, can attack multiple enemies by holding down the button, and it's very fun to use. There's a few platforming segments designed around this ability. She also gets her own quick side loop with her hammer that creates a heart. Each character gets 2 abilities when at max rings. Amy's first one is being able to use her card spin infinitely, which is fine, but her second one gives her a new dash with her tarot cards. While using this dash, you can drift, which is really fun, though the dash has startup lag, which makes it annoying to use consistently, so I'd usually rather not have max rings, but overall Amy is very fun to play as. Being one of the biggest Knuckles fans, my opinion on him is objectively right, and I have very mixed feelings on Knuckles. Now look, he forgot how to punch. Knuckles' base abilities are gliding and boosting. Knuckles' glide is strange, it has startup lag and can be annoying to use for precise gliding, but it is really fun to just use in an open environment. Oh look, a Sonic Boom reference. Bravo, Sega. He has a basic 3-punch attack and he has a drill dive from Adventure. Knuckles not being combat focused is really a shame. I think having less but more powerful attacks could have been cool, but it's fine, I guess. He has a parry that lowers defense and also has the same multiple enemy homing attack as Amy. I wish they didn't give Knuckles this, as his glide is more than enough and would have made Amy have her own unique homing attack. And of course, he has his own quick side loop, being a punch, of course. For his max ring moves, he also gets a new dash, turning into a drill that can damage enemies as you boost through them. And his other max ring ability is an infinite glide, which makes his glide faster and not descend, which is very fun to use. For his platforming, Knuckles has some walls that only he can climb. They'll be marked by being, red, which is usually a sign that it's meant for Knuckles. A lot of platforming makes use of his glide, which is fine most of the time, but for pillars easy to miss, you'll spend a lot of time just gliding around the pillar you want to climb due to the wide turning in the glide. Knuckles' moveset can make precise platforming as Knuckles scary, which I like. I think it's fitting. Though there's a lot of things about Knuckles that I dislike, I find myself having a lot of fun just running around as Knuckles. Climbing to the top of one of the main platform segments can be tedious with his moveset, but man, after you reach the top, you can glide all you want to the next one, and it's so satisfying. There are some things I would change about Knuckles, but overall, he's a real fun time, and I'm just happy to see my boy Knuckles back. Last but certainly not least, miles Tails per hour. Tails is done so well. His starting abilities are boosting and flying. Tails flying feels so good and has this cute startup animation that looks like Tails catching himself while he's falling. The flying lasts a good while and feels great to control. Instead of a homing attack, Tails gets a wrench attack, which has an upgraded version too. Tails also gets a parry that lowers enemies' attacks, and for his quick Psyloop, it's a little cannon. Tails' max rings abilities are great. Your boost gets replaced with the Cyclone from Sonic Adventure 2, and you can literally fly as long as your boost lasts, so you'll be doing the infinite boost a lot. His other max ring ability is being able to shoot a giant laser beam from the Cyclone. Tails' platforming is fun and even goes back to Tails' core, being able to skip all of the platforming. The wrench over homing attack is an interesting choice, but I think a good one because it really makes Tails feel different and stand out. Tails is by far my favorite out of the three. It's so much fun to fly around on the Cyclone and find things all over the skies. And the dedicated Tails sections are fun and really utilize his unique abilities, making Tails the most fun of all. Also, all those animations are great. I have a few small nitpicks, like, I think it would have been cool if each character had their own Psyloop color, but that's like whatever. But I think a bigger gameplay one I have is that my biggest complaint by far is that all three of these characters start at level 1 for all of their stats, making me avoid combat completely in this update, as my level 1 Amy cannot fight back against the new, hardest versions of each boss. I mean, every now and then there are these like Starfall nights where you can collect Coco and attack and defense seeds, and they give you a lot, but they usually only happen once or twice on a playthrough, meaning only one character, or two if you're lucky, will benefit from it. I just really wish they started at maybe a higher level so I'd be more inclined to engage in these new types of bosses. I mean, I did as Sonic a few times, but I really would have loved to try these characters out in combat. After playing the new characters, you swap back to Sonic to climb the towers. To unlock the towers, you need Lookout Coco, which can be acquired by Psyloop gifts or doing the new cyberspace levels with this DLC. These new cyberspace levels are pretty good. They are more difficult and introduce new objectives. Each tower is a platforming section like Rhea Island, but oh my god, the difficulty on these is nothing like Rhea Island. It honestly felt like I was playing Sonic the Hedgehog only up. The fan one took me 2 hours on my first playthrough. I do love these tower challenges though. I've always loved the platforming side of Sonic, and this update really makes it shine in the game. They made me genuinely get mad at a Sonic game. But when I reached the top, oh man did it feel good. For a few seconds, because the top of the towers are the pilots of each Titan as Coco. They each give you challenges with Sonic stats at 1. 3 of them are fine, but the Psyloop one, oh my god. This one took me forever. Your movement has to be exact and have little to no mistakes, and on an average run you'll beat it within mere seconds remaining. But once these are all done, you go back to playing as the others, and after that you switch back to Sonic for the last segment. You climb the final tower and speak to the leader of the Ancients, as a Coco, to learn how to harness the cyber corruption. But before you can, you have to do the final challenge, a boss rush. This is by far the hardest challenge. Sonic's stats have been set to 0, there are no rings available, meaning you have to beat all 3 Titans with only 400 rings, and your parry has been restricted to only be a perfect parry, making parrying very difficult. On my first playthrough, this took me hours. This whole challenge really changed my understanding of these bosses and made me understand them inside and out. The best strategy I found was just to quick Psyloop them so you can avoid parrying. At least that worked on Giganto and the Knight. On Wyvern, you literally cannot attack Wyvern without parrying, meaning you'll have to learn Wyvern's parrying time, which also changes on the second phase. On Giganto and Wyvern's second phases, they attack after being Psylooped, which if you miss that counter, the Psyloop fails. It's fine with Giganto, but can be devastating against Wyvern. The Knight is by far the easiest. The hardest part is probably the part where you have to parry a shield back at him, but besides that, he's pretty simple. He doesn't even counterattack your Psyloops in the second phase. I'd say the hardest part of this boss rush is definitely Wyvern. I think this boss rush is really fun, and you know, I mean, I'll listen to the Titan themes anytime, so I didn't really mind that much. After completing the challenge, Master King gives Sonic the ability to harness his cyber corruption. Sonic's friends and Eggman give Sonic all 7 Chaos Emeralds and he goes to fight the Titan. In this story, you still fight Supreme and defeat Supreme, but this time, instead of going after the end comes to you. descending upon Supreme, creating this awesome mood lighting. The end uses Supreme as his vessel, and he gives it his energy and powers it up, making it grow hands on its back. I love this because it really gives me Dark Gaia vibes. I love the new orchestral version of I'm Here that plays during this. The intro is so dark and intimidating, setting the stage really well, and I love the end always being above you as you fight and creating this great lighting. While the wire is attached to Supreme, he'll heal any damage you deal to him, meaning you'll need to target the wire. The end will throw rocks at you that you can't do anything about until Sonic harnesses his cyber corruption and turns into a new form, which has been dubbed by the community Super Sonic 2. Super Sonic 2 gives you the ability to perfect parry any attack. You better hope that perfect parrying training from earlier paid off. Your goal is to disconnect the wire and get him down to Psyloop gun, then Psyloop the gun once it's out, letting Eggman take control of it. Once that is done, the second phase kicks in. Immediately a new version of I'm Here with vocals from Kellen Quinn kicks in and it fucking rocks. The end begins attacking Eggman, but with the help of Sage and your friends, they put up a shield to protect them. As you continue the fight, eventually the end will shoot this giant orb at Sonic. While trying to stop this giant orb, it reverts him back to just Super Sonic, then reverts him back to Sonic, taking a few hits before turning back into Super Sonic, then Super Sonic 2. I didn't know this, but if you don't have enough rings to absorb the hits from this, you can actually die during this cutscene. After this cutscene, you can really go ham on the end. The music really heightens this fight a lot. And before we talk about the ending, there's two animations that you can get, and I pity anyone who missed these on their playthrough. The first one, probably the most well known, is the perfect parry attack, which shows this really fucking awesome animation of Sonic messing up the end with one of my favorite shots from this game at the end. I mean, this whole thing is just cool. It's just flat out cool and badass, and I love this game. The second one is from double Psylooping. When you Psyloop the end, it'll blow you away and shoot a laser at you. But if you parry this laser then Psyloop him again, it'll create two Psyloops trapping the end in between them. The end of the Psyloop stun plays an awesome animation of Sonic snapping his fingers and crushing the end between the two Psyloops that he's been trapped between. After depleting all the end's health, you get treated to this great animation of Sonic fucking up the end. Afterwards, Sonic goes into Supreme's gun controlled by Eggman and goes all out in the Cyber Corruption super form. Once charged up, Eggman fires at Supreme. Sonic speeding towards them goes straight through both of them, defeating them. To finish out my final boss fight video, as everyone's been asking, I'll give it a rating. Music gets a 10, presentation gets a 10, and gameplay gets an 8, just because on first playthroughs this boss can be very confusing on what to do. The game ends with Super Sonic drifting through space before crashing back to the ground to see all his friends again. Transitioning over to Eggman, we see in this ending that him and Sage are together and get to go home together. The Final Horizon update ends with a vocal version of I'm With You, which I honestly didn't know I needed until right now. There is a post-credit scene, but it's the same from the main ending, so don't really worry about it. I had a lot of fun with this final update. There are some things I would change, but overall I loved it. It was so cool to play these characters again, and this whole update feels like a love letter to the fans. I mean, this is a free update. They could have easily made this paid DLC, but they didn't, and I really appreciate that. The people who worked on this game clearly love it as much as we do, and their passion really shines through here. I've loved this game since it was released, and to see it grow and improve over the past year has been great. Every update you could tell they were listening to the community. Sonic Frontiers is a game that restored my trust in this franchise, and for the first time in a while has me excited and looking forward to the next Sonic game. Thank you to Sonic Team and everyone else who worked on this game for such an amazing experience that I'll never forget with this franchise. Oh, yeah, speaking of new Sonic game, when does the next one come out? Okay, so Sonic Superstars. Oh, shit.
The skies ahead.